Welcome to IT420. Today we're going to be covering the technique called password spraying. It's part of the orange attack path that we will be working on. So first let's cover what is password spraying. Password spraying uses one password, like password 1 or company name 123, and we'll cover that more later, or a small list of commonly used passwords that may match the complexity policy of the domain. So the complexity policy of the domain, if it's default Windows, is typically 8 characters and has an uppercase letter, a lowercase letter, and a number, or a special character to be one of those 3 cases. And if your password list, for example, if you're testing against Office 365, granted you're permitted to do that by the company you work for. If you're testing against it, you would not want to use a password lowercase p and 01 because it would not pass the complexity policy of the domain. Continuing on, logins are attempted with that password against many different accounts on a network to avoid account lockouts that would normally occur when brute forcing a single account with many passwords. So an account lockout typically happens when, say I have a user account that I log into a company. If I fail to put a password in for that account 3 times, 5 times, or 10 times, it may lock my account for an hour, a day, or until it's unlocked by the administrator. So when you're conducting a password spray, make sure you adhere to this guidance because you do not want to lock out the users or the employees that you would be working with conducting the password spraying technique. Here's the reference to MITRE ATT&CK, the technique for brute forcing, and password spraying is a sub-technique of brute forcing. So the technique would be 1110 and the sub-technique 3. So for this technique, we want to do 3 key things. We want to gather who works for this company. And where do I gather the names of employees of a company? I would go to LinkedIn, Facebook, a company webpage, company blog, or a news publication. There are also tools that exist to automate the collection of this information that you could use. So with that in mind, I'm going to go to Ensign's homepage, ensign.edu. And if I was building a user list for Ensign, an employee list, I would start scrolling down looking for names. For example, the first name that I come to is Elder Ronald A. Rasband. So here I would come and start creating a name list. So the first name that I had documented was Ronald Rasband. And then I would continue scrolling on this site looking for additional names like Braley Ogden, Dara, Pam, and Frank. So I've listed their names. In this list here. I could also continue looking at the site, which you should, for additional names. And I could include Bruce Koosh, the president, or Mark Richards, or these additional administrators of the executive council. I'm going to go ahead and pause with just the names that I have collected. Just a moment while And then the next thing, let's talk about usernames, because oftentimes usernames are composed of the names that we collected. Not all the time are email addresses used as a username, but in the case of what we're going to be doing, it is an email address that is used. So become familiar with different username structures. Here are some that I've listed. These are typical username combinations, which include the first name and last name with a period between them, first initial dot last name like J Doe, and first name dot last initial, etc. So what I have done is I have created a script that is located on my blog. You're welcome to pull it down. This is the link to the blog. It's hard to see, but it's the pcnerd.blogspot.com, and the PC Nerd is spelled the PCN3RD.blogspot.com. And then look for a post called Brute Force Password Spray Create List. And what I've done is I've built just a simple Python script where, as I run it, I call the file that I created with my names, the name list that I showed earlier. When I hit enter, it creates the structure of the name of the usernames that I needed. Now, for this exercise to be successful, you need to know the domain name. And in an engagement, you may find out, or that may be given to you. For the purposes of this lab, it was not given to you, or you're not able to find it out. So I'm going to give it to you. It is at windomain.local. So what I've done is I've combined the usernames with the domain name that I have for the email list that I'm going to try in my password spray. So the next step is to generate a list of common passwords. Typically, you can Google Common Passwords List 2021 and get the top 10. You can also look at some commodity malware or common malware that does brute forcing on devices to take them over in the wild or out on the internet. The other way you can compose your own. Oftentimes, help desks will shortcut creating a complex password by using the company name with capitals at the beginning, followed by 123, or one question mark, or the year that it is. The other common method I've seen is season and year, where they will put spring, fall, winter, or whatever, and then the year 2020, 2021, 2022. The other common thing is people will use a combination of related characters on a keyboard. For example, QWERTY, QWERTY, and then they will add one question mark or 123. The other thing they'll do is they'll do a waterfall method of 1QAZ, 2WSX, with capitalizing one of the letters. These passwords are also used in the RockU database that is located on your Kali distro under user, share, word lists, and then rocku.tar, and then you have to untar it to get the actual file. For the purposes of this video and this exercise, I have created this password list. Ensign123, Ensign1 exclamation point, winter 2021, and winter 2022.